As the NFL continues to count down its top 100 players heading into the 2025 season, did we just get evidence that Bo Nix's rookie season has been validated by his fellow peers? Also, which running back will start for the Denver Broncos in Week 1 against the Tennessee Titans? Will it be the veteran J.K. Dobbins or the young and up-and-coming rookie RJ Harvey? All things to come on today's rundown, where we will begin in the NFL, where this morning we got the announcement that Bo Nix, coming off of a rookie campaign where he went 10-7 and ended his season with a wild card playoff appearance in a loss against the Buffalo Bills, heading into his sophomore season is considered not just one of the top 100, but one of the top 70 players in the NFL as voted on by his fellow peers. There was speculation and question about whether or not Bo Nix, given what he had done in 2024, was enough to have him land on this list, especially with the kind of outshining nature of fellow rookie classmate Jaden Daniels and what he was able to do with the Washington Commanders, taking them to the NFC title game and one game away from the Super Bowl in his rookie season. We got our answer this morning, and Bo Nix comes in at number 64. It was interesting to see the way they presented it as well. They start his presentation with a couple of lowlights. He throws an interception, and then you have some of the rough games early in his season, weeks 1 through 3, essentially, before things started to turn around with the win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then the New York Jets. And Solomon Thomas, Nick Bonito, several other NFL players, teammates and non, had a lot of interesting things to say about Bo Nix, about his maturity, his confidence, his underrated speed, his arm, and just his general savviness and playmaking ability. So the question becomes, is this validation officially, not from the fan base that's inclined to root for him because he plays for their team, not from a media conglomerate that covers him or the league at large, but from his fellow players in and around the NFL? Is this validation for Bo Nix and what we saw in 2024 to say that our eyes were not deceiving us? I think yes. I think the fact that after just 17 games at the NFL level, it is more than exemplary for Bo Nix to be recognized for what he did, taking a team that had been in the doldrums for the better part of a decade, and in one season with a new coach, new coordinators, NFL speed, all new teammates to gain chemistry with, and a drink through a fire hose nature, as I often refer to it, with Sean Payton's offensive scheme. To do what Bo Nix was able to do is worthy of recognition, and the players themselves today proved that. So what does it mean for Bo Nix going forward in 2025? Well, I think that it's clear that from the minds of the players, this is not an aberration nor a fluke, and that Bo Nix is indeed the real deal, quote unquote, or on his way to becoming a bona fide starter at the NFL level. And he's going to need to do so in a division that has Patrick Mahomes, arguably one of, if not the greatest quarterback in the NFL, and somebody who already in the early stages of his career is being mentioned as someone who could finish as the greatest quarterback of all time. You have Justin Herbert, who, despite the fact that I do believe he gets more benefit of the doubt than a lot of quarterbacks around the NFL, it's undeniable that Herbert presents a lot of physical and intangible skills at the quarterback position, the way he approaches the game mentally, the things he's able to do physically, and that there is something clicking in the regular season sense between he and his new head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And then you have the Raiders, who we all laugh and have our fun, and justifiably so, because of the way that things have gone for that franchise, similar with the Chargers. But let's not forget how quickly things turned around for the Broncos once they got alignment and synergy from their ownership group with the Walton Penner family ownership group, to the front office with George Payton, to the head coach with Sean Payton, and then the quarterback with Bo Nix. It didn't all come in that order, but once things aligned down the row for the Denver Broncos amongst those different groups, they make the playoffs and snap their streak of losing seasons and playoff appearances in one single season this past year. Well, the Raiders now have Tom Brady involved at the ownership level, who has a say and helps bring in members of the front office, people that he's familiar with. He brings in Pete Carroll, who is a no doubt Hall of Fame head coach at the NFL level. And Pete Carroll brings along with him a quarterback that he is intimately familiar with and clearly favors and works well with in Geno Smith, the man that he took on the post-Russell Wilson era with and was willing to part ways with Russ in order to move forward with Geno. Then you add in the fact that they have the best tight end maybe in the NFL right now in Brock Bowers, or certainly someone who, even though he lost the Rookie of the Year campaign, is going to be on everybody's wish list if they were going to look for a new tight end. They draft Ashton Genty, so you add playmakers now on offense in the run game and the pass game around Geno Smith. The Raiders could very easily be a turnaround team much quicker than people may think. And the Broncos are evidence of the fact that it can happen. So for Bo Nix, his ability to maintain and exceed the level of pace and play that he showed last season is going to be imperative, not just to compete for a playoff appearance in the AFC, but to stay afloat within the AFC West, his own division. And this ranking by the players that comes out each and every year, the NFL's top 100 list, in a lot of ways feels to me more rooted than what we see from the national media and things of that nature. And you could say, well, the players, it's a popularity contest. They pick their favorites. There's biases in every list everywhere you look, depending on who's making it. But you've got offensive players in the NFL, both at the quarterback position, offensive line, skill positions, etc. And then you've got defensive players who play against quarterbacks in the NFL, who collectively came together, and the aggregate score amongst their rankings for Bo Nix was that he is the 64th best player in the NFL right now heading into the 2025 season. That, to me, is obviously a sign of encouragement and validation of what Bo Nix has done and a forecasting of what is to come. And I think it spells nothing but great news for Broncos country, who now looks at their team, who added all these new weapons around Bo Nix and J.K. Dobbins, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant, Evan Ingram, and then on the defensive side with Jahdae Barron, Dre Greenlaw, and Talanoa Hufanga, and says, look at what this quarterback that we love and that took off last season, look at what he now has around him and what it could mean for 2025. The run game is another subject of discussion for this Denver Broncos team, and something we've seen with a lot of NFL teams, and specifically some Sean Payton-led teams in the past, is the successful emergence of a quote-unquote two-headed monster, a 1-2 punch in the backfield that allows the offense to have versatility from a skill set perspective. You have the Ahmad Bradshaws and the Brandon Jacobs. You have speed versus size. And ultimately, maybe there's more of a passing focus, whether it's blocking or receiving with one back and a downhill between the tackles, hard-nosed runner on the other side of that coin. We've seen it work with Sean Payton offenses in the past with the Alvin Kamaras and the Reggie Bushes, but also the Pierre Thomases, the Chris Ivorys, the multitude of backs that he has at his disposal. And whether it's a Mark Ingram or it's an Alvin Kamara, the multitude of backs that he has at his disposal allows him to continue to deploy the versatility and complexity within his offense that he thinks gives his team the best chance to win, to be able to neutralize some of the speed and strength and size increases that we continue to see every year on the defensive side of the football. So for the two Broncos running backs vying for the starting job this season, who ultimately comes out on top? Will it be J.K. Dobbins, the player who they brought in the middle of mandatory mini camp well into their offseason at that point, who is a former Charger and dealt with injury issues for every single year of his NFL career thus far. The next time he plays a fully healthy season will basically be the first time. And then you've got RJ Harvey, the second-round draft pick out of UCF, who the Broncos elected to draft over the likes of an Omarion Hampton, who was on the board when they went to select in the first round, and Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, the two Ohio State backs who went in the second round that the Broncos elected not to try to move up for because they felt confident and comfortable in RJ Harvey's skill set. And we've seen already thus far in OTAs and mandatory minicamp that Sean Payton has a vision for both of these backs, and specifically with RJ Harvey, who we got to see more of before J.K. Dobbins came to town, in the pass game and the run game. As a rusher and receiver, Sean Payton sees both fits for Harvey in this offense. But when the lights came on yesterday over at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, and it was the first official day of practice during the acclimation period for the Broncos, RJ Harvey was certainly given his love too, and maybe got his before in terms of reps and things like that, the likes of RJ Harvey. And that's going to be the ongoing, one of the more intriguing battles and one of the more important battles that takes place on this Broncos roster during training camp. Well, when you look at J.K. Dobbins' statistical season last year, pretty significant production for a guy who played 13 games last season. Just under 200 attempts for 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. So certainly, if healthy for a full season, Dobbins was well prepared to exceed the 1,000-yard mark on the season. But it is the injuries, whether it's the ACL injury he suffered in 2021, his follow-up cleanup knee surgery in 2022, a torn Achilles in 2023, and the MCL sprain that made him miss a handful of games last season in 2024. It is a compounding nature with a lot of those injuries taking place on the same leg year after year after year that has fear in some people in Broncos country about whether or not Dobbins can remain healthy as a weapon for the Broncos. The magic, the voodoo magic, as I call it, of Bo Lowry that has helped turn the Broncos under Sean Payton from one of the most oft-injured teams in the NFL to one of, if not the least injured teams in the NFL. Clearly, the signing of Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and J.K. Dobbins, and maybe even to a lesser extent Evan Ingram as he continues to kind of age and become more long in the tooth in his NFL career at the tight end position, all of those moves in some way are rooted in feeling confident that the gamble on their health will pay off with Bo Lowry, the staff, and the program that we have here in place in Denver. Ultimately, for me, and I've gone back and forth on this a little bit over the course of the offseason, I believe that the best case scenario for the Denver Broncos in 2025 as it relates to their running back room is actually that their second-round pick loses the starting job, the battle for the starting job, not because of his own play, but because J.K. Dobbins, as a savvy veteran and somebody that has proven when healthy, unanimously is able to produce at a high level at the NFL level. I think the best case scenario for the Denver Broncos is that J.K. Dobbins wins the starting job for the Denver Broncos in 2025. And as a secondary caveat, is healthy for the full season. That's an obvious kind of caveat there. But because of the dynamic nature of J.K. Dobbins' play and the way that RJ Harvey is able to kind of on-ramp and ease his way up into the 2025 season, the best thing for the Denver Broncos is not necessarily who wins the starting job. It's that both guys are healthy and contributing through 17 games. We don't need to know necessarily which one is Batman and which one is Robin. It's just that they're both putting on capes to be able to produce and participate in Sean Payton's offense throughout the entirety of a regular season. If that means that J.K. Dobbins wins the starting job, which as a veteran, he may have a leg up in that regard, and carries it through the majority, if not the entirety of the season, that's great, because that means that RJ Harvey can be the two punch and not have all of it thrust on his shoulders, and at best takes over the starting job from J.K. Dobbins at some point throughout the 2025 season. That, I think, is the embarrassment of riches and the luxury that on paper the Denver Broncos have right now, is that it doesn't actually, in my opinion, matter who wins as long as both guys can contribute for 17 games and bring balance to this offense that was sorely lacking last season. We will kick off the fan-invited portion of Training Camp 2025 tomorrow. Stokely and Evans with Mark Schlereth will be live from Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, starting at 6 a.m. And Dover and Cecil will react live to every practice all the way up until 2 p.m. We will be there broadcasting live on this show, The Rundown, starting at noon, and the entirety of the Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan Armada, from on-air to online to social media, will be in presence, in full force, every single day of Broncos training camp to bring you the latest and greatest information ahead of this 2025 season. We'll catch you tomorrow at noon.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in the work.